Well, thank you so much for tuning into our Lighthouse sermons and Lighthouse website. My name is Josh. I'm the preaching pastor here at Lighthouse Church, and Lighthouse is a spirit-filled, Jesus-centered, community-driven church in Denver, Colorado. And if you attend Lighthouse Church on a regular basis, you guys would know that we are a church where we want you to be known, we want you to know Jesus, and we want you to make Jesus known. And so if you're a part of the Lighthouse family, thank you so much for watching this. I love you so much. Our elders love you. We just are so grateful that you're tuning in wherever you're at. But if you happen to watch our sermons or participate in our church community and you're maybe outside of Colorado, maybe you don't have a church home or a place that you attend on a regular basis, we are really grateful that you do watch a lot of the content that we have online and watch my sermons. But I really wanted to encourage you with this. There is no good replacement for a church family and a church community. Sermons are great, videos are great, podcasts are awesome, but what you need is a family and community and church that knows you and loves you. And so if you have not found a good church, please find one. Send us an email. Let us help you find a gospel preaching, spirit-filled church in your city, your town, your state, wherever you're at. And if you're someone who just enjoys what we produce on a regular basis here at Lighthouse, I really wanted to ask you and encourage you to give to our church generously, so that way we continue to make great content for you to not only bless you, but to bless the world and to bless the church as a whole. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you are blessed and encouraged by this sermon from this past week.
Throughout history, God has been on the move. He moved the cosmos into existence. He moved the heart of Moses to set his people free. He moved the exiles from Babylon to Jerusalem, showing his power throughout it all. God is a God who is on the move. And he expects the same of us, the church, to move with audacity, to move with humility, to move with generosity. God is on the move. Thus, we need a move.
Hey, good morning, Lighthouse family. Great to be back with you today. I'm so grateful for each of you, and I'm also grateful for the weather outside this weekend. After winter this past week, it was really nice to finally see some nice weather. But last week, I had the privilege of sharing with you on the whole idea of why become a generous Christian, or why learn to become a generous Christian. And I got a lot of positive feedback from that message, and a lot of you were encouraged, and I really appreciated the conversations I had with some of you. But today I want to talk about experience the joy of being a generous person, and really looking at the how. So once you're motivated in your heart to want to be generous, well, how is that possible? And especially as we look at this move that we're taking and moving to a new facility and renovating that together as a church family, that's going to be a lot of fun this summer. You know, what are ways we can all be part for those of us that want to be part? And so we want to take a look at this whole idea of how to be a generous person. But I also want to mention that when it comes to giving, there's 4 types of giving that a person goes through in their life experiences. One is the area of surrender giving. Those of you who were in the first service last week, I kind of replicated what had happened in my life years ago when I surrendered my life to Christ. And I gave him my pain and my past and my problems and my potential. And I came to the cross and I just surrendered all that I was and all the mess of my life to the Lord Jesus. And I discovered this amazing forgiveness and this amazing love that flooded my soul that I did not have growing up. And so this whole idea of surrendering yourself to Christ is really where a generous life begins. And that's a place that everyone has to come to the cross. Then in your Christian life, there's a place for systematic giving, where you're just very intentionally using your head and going, God, I'm going to honor you with whatever you give me. It's just part of who I am. It's part of my story. It's part of my journey. And God, I'm trusting you as my provider. Then there's spontaneous giving, and this is where we're going to kind of talk about today. This is where God moves in your heart, not in your mind, but he stirs your heart, and he brings you to a place where there's something you're excited about, something you believe in, something you want to help with, and there's really a place for that. And then the fourth area is sacrificial giving. There are times God calls people to incredibly sacrificial giving, but it's done with joy. It's done in the spirit of worship. I think of Barnabas when he gave property to help feed the poor in his day. I think of the woman who came to Jesus' feet and she put the perfume on his feet, and the disciples said, hey, that was worth a year's wages. Imagine giving something that's worth a year's wages. I mean, that's sacrificial, right? That whole idea. When David and the leaders gave an offering to the building project, that was a $35 billion offering. That was sacrificial giving. So there's these four kinds of giving, but I really want to today look at this idea of the spontaneous giving. But also I want to remind you that there's a 30-day devotional. Many of you have that. If you don't have the printed version, you can get it. We also have the app version. If you go to your phone, just put in Joyful Giving. It's there every day. There's podcasts, there's readings. And then if you go to the church Facebook page, every day, their staff is doing an amazing job. My wife and I literally every day go and listen to the staff talk about something from the 30-day devotional, and we've really, really enjoyed that. But when it comes to this whole idea of giving to a building project, let's give some context to it. These kinds of opportunities for most people only happen a few times in your entire lifetime. In your entire lifetime, you'll have an opportunity to be part of a church that's actually growing, a church that's actually on the move, a church that's expanding, a church that's reaching people, a church that's loving on people, a church that's building community. I mean, that, in a lot of life experiences, that doesn't happen. A lot of churches are in decline. A lot of churches are just kind of stagnant. But you are part of a church or Lighthouse where God is on the move, and He's moving in us. He's moving in our congregation. He's moving in our community. And now He's moving us about 10 minutes south from here to be part of something new that He wants to do in our life. These opportunities, yes, amen. There's some excitement for that, right? God's given us something that we could never even have imagined, but He is bringing it to us. But you see, this story is in the Bible. You see, Moses did that with the tabernacle. The people literally got to be part of the tabernacle. David did that with the temple. People in his day literally helped build the temple. Nehemiah, Ezra, Haggai, they were part of the rebuilding of the temple. Joash literally was part of a restoration project. So within the life of God's people, this idea of giving to something that's bigger than yourself is a cool opportunity that God gives you really only a few times in your lifetime. So what are the four ways on what is it going to take to become this joyful giver to this particular opportunity we have? Number one, take a look at this. Give enthusiastically. Find the motivation in your heart. Give enthusiastically, find the motivation in your heart. 2 Corinthians 9:7, each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. This idea of cheerful giver literally means hilarious. It means jumping up and clicking your heels. It means like throwing your hands in the air and going, woo, I get to give. Now, this whole idea of this spontaneous giving is not something you have to do. It's literally where God is stirring in your heart, moving in your heart, and you're going, I want to do this. God, you've put this in my heart. I think this is a good thing. I think this is a great idea. And this can happen with a building project. It can happen with missions. It can happen with serving the needy. It can happen in lots of different ways. But it's this idea where something inside of you just goes, I want to do this. Now, here's the other side of that. If you don't want to, no one's coming after anyone. No one's going to say, well, you have to. There is no have to in these kinds of opportunities. There's literally an opportunity that God gives us to say, look, if you want to, you can. If you want to, you can. Remember last week I talked about lining everybody up in the room. Imagine if we lined all the wealthy people here to the poorest all the way to the back. And then there was this whole line of people and we were all lined up. So here's the question. Who does God want to be generous? He invites everybody in the line. Everybody in the line, from the front of the line to the back of the line, there are opportunities God gives and He says, I invite you to be generous if you want to. If it's in your heart, step forward and let God show you how to do that. By the end of this message, you'll know how this is even possible for anybody, regardless of how little you have or how much you have. We will get to that this week. The Haggai 1:5, it's interesting, talked about when they were rebuilding the temple. The people were actually going, they didn't want to give. They literally did not want to be givers. And they were complaining about, it's a bad time, the economy's not good, and we're busy with our own thing. And it's interesting, in those verses in Haggai, God says this: give careful thought to your ways. All right? So the people were actually complaining they didn't want to be givers, and God literally says, okay, give careful thought to your ways. What ways? Your financial ways and your giving ways. It says this about them: you have planted much, but you have harvested little. You eat, but you never have enough. You drink, but you never have your fill. You put on clothes, but you are not warm. You earn wages. Listen to this one. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. Think about that idea. Imagine having a purse and the bottom was out, and you get your paycheck and you put it in there and it just goes right through. I mean, so many people in life, they literally do not know where their money went. They're like, I had it and it's gone. I have no idea where it went. And God was talking to the people at that time. He's saying, you're so busy with all your things, but you're forgetting my house. Again, he says, give careful thought to your ways. You expected much, but it turned out to be little. What you brought home, these tight-fisted people, what you brought home, God said, I blew it away. So it's very fascinating. These people, they were God's people, but they were living very materialistic lives, and it was all about themselves and their house and their stuff and their wants and their needs. And God says, look, you have nothing left. You have nothing to show for what you've worked and earned. Then it says this: why, God said, why did I do that? Why did I blow on everything you brought home? Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you is busy with his own house. It's in America today, people are so busy with their own things and their own stuff. We happen to, for a number of reasons, we had to do a little shopping this weekend, and we were over at, I was in Lowe's, and we were in Costco, and we were over at American Furniture, and it was just fascinating. I mean, there's just people walking out with thousands of dollars of stuff. I mean, like Costco was massive amount. Like one guy had like a 70-inch TV and a 60-inch TV and stereo equipment. I don't know how much he spent, but he spent a lot of money just pushing out his thing. And it's just fascinating. In America, we will go spend hundreds and thousands of dollars and we'll barely think about it, all right? But if the typical church would say, hey, give a special offering, people are like, oh, no, I have no extra money, right? And yet we'll go easily spend, but we won't spend for the things of God. I heard one time there was a $1 bill and a $100 bill, and they were on their way to the furnace. I don't know if you know this, but in America, when money gets used up, they burn it. They literally burn it. And so there was the $100 bill and the $1 bill, and they were on their way to the furnace, and suddenly started having a little conversation, and the $100 bill, the $1 bill said to the $100 bill, hey, how was life? What was life like for you? And the $100 bill said, oh, it was nice. I said, nice cars, nice homes, nice vacations, nice clothes, nice everything, nice food. Life was good. How about you, little $1 bill? What was life like for you? He said, well, all I would do was go to church, go to church, go to church, go to church. And the $100 bill said, what's a church? I never been in a church. You see, you take a $100 bill to church and they're like, whoa! You take a $100 bill to Costco and they're like, so what? Or Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever, And God is saying in Haggai's people are just busy with themselves. And God says, look, no, honor me. And so there was this real desire to say, okay, God, take a deep breath and say, Lord, I want to honor you. I want to. I don't have to. I want to. I want to honor you. 2 Chronicles 24:10, they were doing a renovation project, and Joash was in charge of this, and he literally was trying to raise money for the renovations, and so he made a Joash box, and they put a box, and it says this: all the officials and all the people brought their contributions gladly, dropping them into the chest until it was full. They just kept coming. I mean, week after week, day after day, they just kept coming. It's interesting in Moses' story in Exodus 35, the people were slaves, but yet they plundered Egypt on the way out the door when they were leaving Egypt. And they had wealth. Even though they had been slaves, they had this wealth. And Moses says, we're going to build a tabernacle. And it says this, all the skilled craftsmen who were doing all the work on the sanctuary left the work and said to Moses, the people are bringing more than enough for doing the work the Lord has commanded us to do. After Moses then gave an order, sending a proclamation through the camp, no man or woman should bring anything else as an offering for the sanctuary, so the people were restrained from bringing any more. That is a cool building campaign, right? So literally the people were bringing and the workers finally said, hey, Moses, we got to stop this. They're bringing too much. My friends, we are a biblical church, all right? I'm an elder here. Josh is a pastor here. If you bring too much, we will make you stop, all right? We will be biblical. We will say, no. We have more than enough. So that's a promise, I guarantee. If you bring too much, we will let you know, all right? But it's the whole idea of be enthusiastic. In your heart, do you want to be a giver? Number 2, give willingly, find the maturity. Give willingly, find the maturity. Exodus 35, 21 and 22. Everyone who is willing and whose heart moved him came and brought an offering to the Lord for the work. All who are willing, men and women alike. Men and women alike. Is God moving in your heart? Is he doing something and you get to this place of want to? I think of a friend of mine, her name is Donna, and there was some kind of a project she wanted to give to, and she was excited about it, but her husband wasn't. He goes, I really don't want to give this particular project that she really was passionate about. And he said, you figure out how you want it. If you're passionate in your heart, you figure out how to give. And so she was thinking about it. What could she do? Well, every day she went to Starbucks. Okay, every day on the way to work, she went to $5, all right? She went up, she got her, whatever the description she had. She kind of had her little routine. On the way to work, she went to $5. And she would go through the line. And she was like, I really, really want to give to this particular project that she was passionate about. So in her heart, there was a desire to want to. And she was like, how am I going to do that? And she came to the conclusion, I'm going to make coffee at home. And I'm going to give the difference. All right? So think about the numbers, right? So $5 a day, $25 a week, $100 a month, $1,200 a year. She made coffee at home and then gave that. Why? Because she wanted to. It was in her heart. She wanted to do this. It's interesting. If you came in today, you probably got this little thing here, this folder, but in here there's this bookmark. In here there's a place where it talks about ways you can give. It says one time, monthly, all that. One of them is by the end of 2019. This is a box, and here's how this is a faith promise box. I don't know if you've ever heard of a faith promise. A faith promise box is this. You ask God for a number. You don't say, how much do I want to give? You say, God, how much do you want me to give? You ask God for a number. If you're married, do it separately. Do it separately. And for many people, I believe God will give you the same number. It's fascinating. But you literally ask God, say, God, what do you want me to give? Because here's the truth. What God orders, he pays for. And where God guides, he provides. So that box is saying, God, by the end of the year, I feel you want me to give the number. As a young man in my 20s, I was a new Christian. I heard about this concept, and they were talking about it was for missions, and they said, pray for a number. And as a young man, I was in my middle 20s, and the number God gave me was $750. And that felt like a lot of money to me. I mean, like, whoa, way more than I had ever imagined in my head. But it was a number in my heart. Not in my head, it was in my heart. God, okay, $750. All right, so I filled out a card like this in my middle 20s, $750. And that was in addition to my regular giving to my church. So this is just for mission. So giving regularly, but then this faith promise to give $750. So I did that, and by God's amazing grace, by the end of the year, literally, I made a $750 commitment. And there were some miracles that happened along the way. A few years later, I was newly married. I was in my late 20s, and my wife and I we were making $15,000 a year. We're working at a Christian camp. We're on missionary support. $15,000 a year was our income. So we wanted to give to a project. We really were excited about it. We wanted to give. So we decided to pray for a week. We said, okay, we're going to pray and ask God for a number. So I start praying. And again, I made $15,000, right? Or we made $15,000. So I'm praying and I get this number and it's a stupid number. I'm like, it's $10,000. And I'm like, oh my God. But I'm like, I am not worried about this number because my wife, she will never have that number. I mean, because the whole point of the praying separately is you come together and then you're in agreement. So you get a number from God and then you come up with the number and then you go, okay, God, you put this in our heart, not our heads, in our heart, so we're going to give it. So I'm just kind of praying, okay, Lord, 10,000, sure, 10,000, I'm just praying throughout the week. And like, I get together on Sunday with my wife or Saturday, whatever it was. I said, honey, what's your number? And she said, you go first. I said, no, you go first. Ladies first, right? And I'm just like, this isn't like, she's going to come up with like 500 or 1,000, extra. And she goes, well, my number's 10,000. And I'm like, are you kidding me? She goes, I'm not kidding. And she goes, what's your number? I said, 10,000. She goes, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to pray for another week. God gave you 10,000, he gave me 10,000, but how are we going to do that? And we prayed another week. And came back together. What's your number? 10,000. What's my number? 10,000. Okay, God, we want to do this, and this is the number you put in our heart. And we don't really know how we're going to get there from where we are today, but you're God. And what you order, you pay for, and where you guide, you provide. And okay, and so we took out a piece of paper. We said, well, how can we help God? how can we kind of get there, And we came up with 18 things we could do. We'll cut down on our grocery budget. We were going to buy a new car this year, and if we took the money we're saving for that car, we can give some of that. And we don't take a vacation this year, and we wrote down all these things. We came up with 18 things to kind of get us towards the number. And a year later, we gave 10,000. We made 15,000, and there was $10,000 of provisions, and we gave it. And yay to God, okay? But here's the really cool thing. About a year and a half later, I found my list. All the things we were going to sacrifice to do this, and everything on the list had gotten done another way than we expected. God gave us a car. We went on a vacation. Got what people gave. All kinds of things happened. And we really, sometimes giving isn't really giving. Really, it's loaning to God, and God repays on his loans, okay? Some giving is not really giving, it's a loan to God. And God says, I will show off in your life as you literally learn to honor me. Wow. Heart versus head giving. Another story that this is my wife's favorite story. When God prompts your heart to give. This is different than, again, your head. There'll be somebody with a need. You'll see somebody and you'll feel prompted to help that person. Could be on the street, could be somebody whatever. But one time I was with a guy who's from Asia, and I just met him, and we were chatting, and I was getting to know him. I spent about an hour with him, and at the end of the time, I said, hey, he was here in the States for like 2-3 weeks. He had airplane tickets to go to different places to meet with people, but he had no money. All he had was airplane tickets, no money at all. I found that out in our hour conversation. And so we're sitting there, and so I said to him, well, why don't I pray for you before we leave each other? So I started to pray for him, and then I felt the Lord speak to my heart. Brian, give him all the money in your wallet. Okay. How much do I have in my wallet? I don't usually carry much cash. I just don't do that, but sometimes I'll have maybe $40. There's other times I'll sometimes have $100 behind a little flap. I call that God money because God may tell me to give $100 to someone, and so I'll just do that. So at the most in my brain, my head is going, okay, this is going to cost me $40 or $140 if I give him everything in my wallet. So I'm like, okay. So I'm done praying, and I said to the fellow, I said, hey, while I was praying, God told me to give you everything in my wallet. Can you open up your hands? And so he put out his hands, and I started going through my wallet. And folks, To this day, I don't know how this really happened, but every place I looked, there was money. There was a 50, and there was 100, another 100, another 50, and there were some 20s, and there were some 10s. And so I'm literally putting my money in this guy's hands, and it's piling up bigger and bigger and bigger, and his eyes are getting bigger. But you know what? My eyes are bigger than his eyes, because I'm like, oh my goodness, how much money am I giving this guy? And so finally, my wallet's empty, and the guy said, did you want to give me all this money? And I said, no. No, I didn't. He said, how much is here? I said, I have no idea. He said, well, let's count it. It was $568, okay? How did it get in my wallet and I didn't know about it? How do you get $568 in your wallet and you don't know it's there? I don't know. I don't have an answer to this day how I possibly had or why I had $568. And the guy said, well, should I give some of it back to you? And I said, no. God told me in my heart, give you what's in my wallet. And God knows it was $568. Maybe they're angels, pushing money in there. I don't know how it got in there, but God knows you need $568. So you need to go on your way the next couple of weeks in America with money in your pocket. $568 that God provided. Guess what, folks? That did not cost me $568. What did it cost me? $40 to $140, because I didn't even know I had it in there, okay? So literally, God can prompt your heart to give, and your mind cannot even wrap your mind around it. In my life, God's prompted me to give cars away. And I've been like, God, I don't want to give my car away. And the Lord has shown me who to give it to, and there's been several times God's literally said, give your car. Okay, everything I have is yours, God, and if you want me to give my car away, then I'll give it away, and then you'll have to show me what to do about a vehicle and transportation. But it's that idea that God can speak to your heart. God can speak to your heart. 1 Chronicles 29, 3 and 5 to 9. In my devotion to the temple of my God, I now give my personal treasures. He looked at what he had. King David literally looked at, whatever he had, his stuff, his finances, took a look at everything he had, and he said, I will give these personal treasures. And then he says, who will follow my example? Who is willing to give offerings to the Lord today? Then the family leaders all gave willingly. The people rejoiced over the offerings, for they had given freely and wholeheartedly to the Lord. He looked at what he had and he said, what can I give? What can I give? In your little booklet here that you got today, there was the bookmark. Some of you got this last week. Keys to financial stability on one side, and then all the ways God provides on another. When it comes to giving to this particular opportunity at our church, and you have a desire, you have a God-given desire, you say, God, I want to be part, I want to do something. Here's what to do. Look at this list and say, what do I have? What do I have? And there's income from work, there's extra income, there's unexpected cash, there's lifestyle changes, there's needed items, there's all kinds of things. You may have things already in your life and you say, God, I'm willing to give that up. I'm willing to give that, Lord, because you've given it to me. And maybe you give it because he spurs your heart to give, or maybe you give it because you really don't need it anymore. Maybe you can sell something, maybe you can give something. There's things you can do, and literally it's this idea of looking at what you have. So it's literally looking at what you currently have. We'll talk later about looking to the future, but looking at what you have. Number 3, give intentionally, find the means. Give intentionally, find the means. 1 Corinthians 16:2. On the first day of the week, each of you should set aside some money. Where does it say? First day of the week, each of you should set aside some income and save it to the extent that God has blessed you. Okay? So we talked last week about God as your provider. There's lots of ways that God can provide, and this list is part of that. So another way you can do things when it comes to giving is, one, you can look at what you have, or you've gotten in the past and what you have. But the other thing you can do is you can literally look at what God is giving you in the current. So as you live the rest of this year out, you can literally look at how is God providing in your life. How is he providing in your life? But the whole idea here in Corinthians is people were to see what God provided, and they were to set aside money to give. All right? What does that look like? What is the secret? And it is a secret because most people don't know it. What is the secret to being a joyful giver? The secret is seeing and setting aside. You have money you live on and you have money you give on. You learn to see what God has provided and you learn to set aside. What did that look like when my children were 3, 5, and 7 years old? What does a 3, 5, and 7-year-old get? They get birthday money. They get Christmas money. They might get a little bit of an allowance. They might get a little project money. So here's my kids at 3, 5, and 7. Here's my daughter Bethany. There's 3 envelopes they were given when they were little children. They had God's envelope. And so she drew on here a cross and a church and the Bible. So we had giving, her giving envelope. Then we had the bank. She had a picture of a bank and her standing outside the bank, all right? And then we have a picture of the store. So it was giving, it was saving, and it was spending, all right? So literally when my kids got any money for any reason, we literally took them into the bedroom. We brought out their envelopes. So this is my son Josh's envelope, and this is Jeremy's, who's 3 years old, all right? And we'd say, okay, and we even had like some notes on what the money was from, and we wrote it down. How did God provide for a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old? And they would literally put money in God's envelope first, then money in savings, then money in spending. Wow. Isn't that cool? What plan do you have? When God provides for you, what's your plan? You got to have a plan. And if you have a plan, if you make a plan, and you can make it this week. If you don't have a plan, you can make a plan, and you can say, God, when you provide all these different ways, I want to honor you. I want to thank you. I want to praise you for what you've done for me, and I want to give to you. And so what happened is when there was a church thing or a missionary thing or whatever, my kids would literally go into their envelope and go, oh, I got God money. And out of their God money, they would do it. What does it look like for Mary Ellen and I? We're big kids, right? What does it look like? So for us, we kind of use that bookmark idea. What are the ways God provides for us? We send ourselves an email. We literally say, God, how did you provide for us? And we literally say, well, there was our paycheck, and then there was a discount we got somewhere, and then there was some savings somewhere. I mean, something happened, or someone bought us a meal, or we got different things took place, and we literally send ourselves a message. And then what we do is we literally have an app on our phone, Chase Bank. And so in our case, we open up our Chase Bank, and if we can count up, let's say, $1,000 of financial blessings that God gave there's our paycheck, but beyond our paycheck, if there was $1,000 in blessings, we'll literally, in our case, give at least a tenth of that, and we have a giving account. We have checking accounts, savings account, and a giving account. And we'll literally say, God, you provided $1,000 of financial blessings in addition to our paycheck. And so, God, we want to thank you. So we'll take $100 and we'll throw it over the wall. And we'll literally have that in our giving account. Then when we have opportunities to give, we literally can say, well, what's in the giving account? Kind of like my kids, what's in the envelope? And when there's money in the envelope and there's money in the giving account, we give it freely. You see, we have money we live on and money we have money we give on. Mary Ellen and I were talking. So what did that look like in the last few weeks in our life? Just a few weeks ago, we were actually on an overseas trip, and because of Mary Ellen's dad dying from a funeral, we had to come home early. We had to come home 3 days early, and so I called the airlines. I'm like, we've got to change our fares. And the gal goes, well, there's a change fee. It's $125 a person, and I'm like, okay, well, it is what it is, but we need to make this change. And so she helps me, and then she said, you know what, I'm not going to charge you for that. So it's $250, and she didn't charge us for that. So I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So we got to get home for the funeral. Well, then a day later, the family makes this decision to have the funeral a week later than we expected. So now we've got to change our ticket again. So I called back the airlines. I said, hey, we're so sorry. We need to change our ticket again. She goes, we already cut you a break the first time and didn't charge you a change fee. And I said, I know, we really appreciate that. And she goes, I'm going to have to charge you a change fee this time. And I said, yeah, I understand. And then she's working on it. And then she says, you know what, we're not going to do that. I'll waive it again. Okay, do the math, right? I owed them, what, 125 times 4, $500. $500. And what did they say? No problem. Is that a blessing or not? Is that a blessing to me or not? That's a financial blessing. So that week it would be like, there's $500 that God provided. Now, we always give at least a tenth. Sometimes we've given the whole amount to something. We say, well, God, we really want to give over here or over there or to something. And so anywhere from 10% to the whole amount, we'll just give it. A few weeks ago, we had new windows put in our house. And 1 year, we've been saving for it. And 1 year we did the front of the house. And this last year we did the side of the house. And so we paid part of the money down, and then they were coming in to put in the new windows. And the balance due was $3,800. It was a lot of money. Windows are expensive. And so they come, and Mary Ellen goes outside when they're putting the new windows in. And she goes, there's the wrong color. So they were supposed to be taupe, and these were bronze, all right? And so I called the company. I said, hey, you guys, you gave us the wrong color window and the wrong color patio door. And they're like, hey, we are so sorry. Well, we'll put them in, and then we'll build you brand new ones, and then we'll come back, and we'll take out the old one, the ones we just put in, and we'll put in the new ones. And I'm like, wow, that's going to be really expensive. And they're like, yeah. So what are you going to do with the windows that were the wrong colors? We're going to just break them up, throw them away, because they're all custom. I said, well, how about giving me a deal? And they said, well, what do you mean a deal? I said, I don't know. I said, I owe you $3,800. What are you going to pay me to keep the windows? And it went back and forth for a while, and they finally said, well, how about $1,000? I said, deal. $1,000. I took off $2,800. The windows worked fine. No one can tell the difference from the outside. One's on one side, one's on the other side. And by God's grace, it's $2,800. This last week, we took off the patio cover on our patio furniture, and we discovered that all the patio furniture got wrecked over the winter. I've had it for 2 years, had a 1-year warranty. Something was wrong with the finish. And I called American Furniture, and they came out, they sent somebody, and they said, we will give you a gift card for the whole amount, even though it's past the warranty. That's God's grace, right? That's God's provision. So we went to look for new furniture yesterday, found some possibilities, and we're going to get a few things, but we're going to have probably $1,000 gift card left over. Guess where it's going to go? Hey, Josh, you need any furniture for the new place, right? Can church use a $1,000 gift card at American Furniture? Absolutely. Is it something I have in my possession? Absolutely. Do I want to give it? Absolutely. Do I have to give it? No. I want to give it. And so you literally learn to look at what you have. And this whole idea of this giving account, it just changes everything. Next verse here, Exodus 35:5. From what you have, take an offering for the Lord. From what you have. I was part of a church years ago that we bought a racquetball club. I'm into buying sports facilities and making them into churches. Racquetball clubs, soccer facilities. So I was a leader at that church too. And we bought a racquetball court and we made it into a facility. And we were talking about people, give from what you have. And one gal came up. She said, I really, really want to give, but I make like $10 an hour. I just have like no extra money. I said, well, what do you have? She goes, I don't know. I said, just pray about what you have. And she came back and a week or two later, and she said, hey, I've got this really ugly necklace. And it was from my rich aunt, and I think it's worth something, but I would never, ever wear it. And I said, well, go find out what it's worth. Go find out what a jeweler will give you. And she came back and she said, Brian, it's worth $2,500. And I said, what do you want to do? She goes, I want to sell it, and I want to give all of it to this project. Isn't that cool? She had something of value that wasn't of value to her per se. And she took what she had, and she decided that she wanted to give to that project. What do you have? I was looking at my house the other day. I was looking, okay, what do I have? We had a Jeep last year. We ended up selling it, and I have 5 Jeep tires and rims. I'm like, I've got Jeep tires and rims. Guess what? I can sell that and give it to the building project. I've got an infrared medical light we're not really using. I could sell that and give it to the building project. We've got some other things in my life. I got some office equipment I don't really need anymore. We can sell that and give it to the building project. Do you see the idea where if you have a want to inside of you, that literally you can just go do things. But it's also the time, talent, and treasure. when we go do the building over there, we need to work on it together. We're asking people to give 3 days of service, 5 hours, at least 5 hours, 3 times to just help. Help what? I don't know, help whatever. Help paint, help clean, help do whatever it takes to make that building into our church home. Taking your time, your talents, and literally together working side by side doing it. Again, with a faith promise, be on the lookout what you have, but also what you'll receive. Isaiah 45:3, I will give you treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name. So you have what you have, but what you also could give from is what God may provide for you coming up in this coming year, all right? So you have to be on the lookout. You have to be on the lookout for what God might do in your life. God says, I will give you the treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you will know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name. God may want to bless you this year in some financial way so that you might become a blessing. Most people, when they get increased income, they think their income is to increase their standard of living. God may be giving you something to increase your standard of giving, all right? Sometimes provisions of God are for that purpose. There's more there, more than you need, because God wants to do something in your life and through your life. I shared this years ago at my church. The church as part of where we bought the racquetball club. I was 35 at the time. I was one of the oldest people in the church. We had no wealthy people. We had no white-collar people. We only had blue-collar people and no-collar people, T-shirt people. That's all we had in our church, all right? So we were going to be buying this building and everything, and I told people about this verse, treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places, and said, be on the lookout. We had 90 days to come up with the money to buy the building. God might do something in your life. And one guy calls me, and he's all mad at me, and he's from Brooklyn, and he calls me, and he says, hey, Brian, he said, what are you talking about? Treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places. He said, I work at Patrick Cudahy factory, where they made the sausages and hot dogs and stuff like that. He goes, I work in a factory. I make $18 an hour. He said, where am I going to come up with extra money? Where am I going to come up with treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places? He says, I live in a 100-year-old house. You want me to go break through the walls and pick up the floorboards looking for secret treasure? He said, that's crazy. You're crazy. He and Bob were friends. If you're here last week, everyone thinks I'm crazy. And maybe I am for the Lord, right? We're all crazy for something. I want to be crazy for the Lord. So anyway, Bob called me, and he was a little upset. And I just said, Bob, we're just saying, be on the lookout. If God does something, just be aware, be alert that God might be doing something in your life so that you can be part of the miracle in the making. You can be part of a move of God. And so anyway, we chatted, and a number of weeks later, Bob calls, Brian, I got to tell you a story. He said, in my factory, he said, we all work on our machines, and he said, the foreman will sometimes come out of his office in the middle of the factory or on one end of the factory, and he'll yell the person's name, get in here, yell out their name. And he said, one day the foreman came out, and he goes, Lavoti, get in here. And Mike's like, Brian, do you know what that means in my factory? Do you know what happens when that guy steps out of his office and he yells your name and says, get in your office? He said, we call it the death march. He said, because you're getting a pink slip. You're getting let go that day. You're getting fired or you're getting laid off. And he said, it's a terrible thing. And it's a big, huge factory. And I'm on one end and I have to walk by all the other machines and all the other people. And it's almost kind of like this salute, goodbye to the comrade, because you're going to get your ticket out of here with a pink slip. And he goes, and I'm walking that from one end of the factory to the foreman's office, and I'm like, how am I going to pay my kids? How am I going to live? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to take care of my kids? He had 3 kids. And he's just like freaking out, and he gets to the guy's office, and he's standing there in front of the guy's desk, and his head's down, and he goes, Lavoti, sit down. And so Mike sits down, and he's sitting there, and the guy says, Lavoti, here. And he hands Mike an envelope, and Mike's just got his head down. He's holding on to the envelope, and the guy goes, open it up, Lavoti. So he's like, I don't need to open this up. I know what it is. It's a pink slip. Open it up. So Mike opens it up. And in there's a check for $500. And Mike's like, no pink slip. just a check for $500. And Mike's like, is this a severance thing? What, you know? And Mike looks up at the guy, and the guy goes, Lavoni, you're doing a good job now. Get out of here and get back to work. And Mike's like, he's like walking out of the guy's office, and he's in unbelief. He's in shock. He had never heard of anyone getting a bonus anywhere, this ever happening to anybody. And he's walking. He's like, wow, $500. I can use the money for this and for that. And then all of a sudden he goes, Brian, I hear the voice of God, and he sounded just like you. And he said, treasures of darkness, riches stored in sacred places. And he said, oh shoot, this isn't for me. This is for the building. He said, oh my goodness. And he came to church and he signed over the back and he gave the $500 check to the church. And then he called me and he said, Brian, we're going to get this building. God is in this. We're going to get this building. And 90 days later, this T-shirt, no shirt, blue collar group handed a company a check for $500,000 cash. And we bought the building. And Mike got to be part of a miracle in the making. What's going to be your story? How's God going to move in your heart? Let's go on here last. Let's go to number, give expectantly, find the magnitude. Deuteronomy 16:7, each of you must bring a gift in proportion to the way the Lord your God has blessed you. Look at what God's given you. Look at what he will give you. 2 Corinthians 9:11, you will be made rich. It means be given more than enough. Doesn't mean prosperity gospel rich. It means you'll be made rich. You'll have more than enough in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion, and through us your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. In other words, it means people will rejoice. I believe that the story of Lighthouse, the story of the soccer field, the story of our giving, the story of our renovations, I think that story is going to go around the country. I think it's going to go into our community. I think people are going to hear the story and go, whoa, look what God did. Look what God did. One is I know it's going to go around the country, and I know it's going to go around the world because I'm going to tell it. when I go around the world, I'm going to brag about Lighthouse Church family and what God did to do this miracle in the making and give us this facility so that we could have a church home and we could begin to continue our growth and our impact of touching lives, reaching people, building community, loving people, all of that. And so God wants to tell a story. But we all get to have part of the story. We all get to kind of have, this is what my story, and this is your story, and this is someone else's story. He wants to do something amazing. Matthew 6:20-21. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. You know, this whole idea of literally saying, God, I want to be part of your kingdom. Lord, I want to have my life and my stuff and my finances. I want it to be part of what you're doing. And I want to be part of a community where we're seeing you at work and we're seeing you moving. So next, June 2nd, June 9th, we just invite people to just say, take that little card, wherever it is up here. I don't have it. I can't find it at the moment. And literally just put down what God has in mind for you. Just be part. Be part of what God's doing with our church family. And there's a way you can give financially. There's a way you can give by faith. There's a way you can give your time and just be part of the journey. I'm so grateful. I have the chance just to encourage you today. That's my hope. That's my dream is that, you go like, I want to be generous. And then hopefully you've gotten some ideas to go, you know what? If I want to be, God can help me to be. That's our goal. Let's pray.